أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وقال الله في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُم مُّصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Dear Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, Ashura has drawn to a close. About 10 days ago, we had pitched a tent, metaphorically speaking, pitched a tent of mourning and of aza. And tonight, we will be bringing down this tent and gathering it up. At least it will not continue to exist in this present large, expansive form. We will continue to grieve and mourn for the next 2 months, approximately. But its scale will probably be smaller than what it has been over the last 10 days. But grieving will continue. The sorrow of Hussein and of Karbala will not be set aside entirely. Dear brothers and sisters, the world runs away from pain and grief, and we are no exception. We seek to run away from anything that causes us sorrow and pain, except when it comes to the sorrow of Hussein. Here, we find ourselves running away from everything that could deprive of us of this sorrow. We find ourselves running away, for example, from sins, because we know that sinning may deprive us of this grief. We find ourselves running away from disunity and slander, because it may deprive us of this grief. We see in this grief a life-giving force. We derive sustenance from this grief. And therefore, there is no wonder, it is no wonder that this grief has been impossible to stamp out over the last 1400 years. And there has been no shortage of efforts made to stamp it out. It has been impossible to stamp out. Not only has it not been stamped out, in fact, it has grown from strength to strength. Many of us here today were born into families that were already commemorating Ashura. I'm sure many of us feel today that as our understanding of Karbala has grown, so has the intensity of our grief and attachment in relation to it. It has grown. It has grown even among those, it has grown in quality even among those who were born into Shia families. And there are some of us here today who were not born into such families. And they were given this gift of Karbala's grief and Hussein's grief at a later point in their lives. Their presence here today, among us today, their presence here itself is a sign of growth. And this growth will continue, whether in depth and quality or in numbers. In both ways, it will continue and continue till it reaches zuhur and beyond, inshallah ta'ala. This is how we feel about our grief for Karbala. But we haven't gathered here tonight to talk about our grief. We are here tonight to remember the pain and sorrow that was inflicted upon the Ahlul Bayt 1400 years ago. As-salamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn wa ala awlad al-Husayn wa ala ashab al-Husayn. We've gathered here tonight to send our salams and salutations to the bodies of martyrs scattered in the desert. We've gathered to send our salams and salutations to those heads that have gone up upon spikes and stakes. We've gathered here to send our salutations to the ladies who at a time such as tonight cannot decide should they mourn over their menfolk who have been martyred, their children who have been slaughtered, or should they mourn over their own tribulations. Some of them are looking at their empty cradles. Some of them are contemplating widowhood. Some of them are getting their first bitter taste of what it is to be an orphan. Salam to those ladies. Salam to those children. The special thing about tonight, Sham-e-Ghareeban, or as the Arabs say, Laylatul Wahsha, the night of terror. The special thing about tonight is that it isn't a night of just one or two tribulations or acts of cruelty. But there seems to be a string of tribulations that the Ahlul Bayt was subjected to tonight, and not just any among the Ahlul Bayt, but the weakest and the most vulnerable members of the Hussaini camp were subjected to these cruelties tonight. Take the matter of ransacking and attacking the tents. It's no small matter. It's no small matter. While Imam Hussain was still alive and he came inside the tents to bid his farewell, to say his final goodbyes to the ladies, do you know what the ladies asked him for at that time? They had just one request. They gathered around him, pleading with him, struck by terror and panic, pleading for just one thing, saying, "Oh Hussain, please find a way to send us back to Medina." Because they know what is in store for them after Hussain is martyred. The matter of ransacking of the tents and looting the tents is no ordinary thing at all. When Imam Hussain alayhi salam was in the final moments of his life, when he had no strength to fight anymore, was barely breathing, you've heard this, that the enemy, when he wished to test whether Imam Hussain is still alive, they gave the order for the tents to be attacked. Imam Hussain, who had no strength to get up, tried to get up at this time. They say he propped himself up on his elbows and lifted his head somehow, trying to draw the attention of the enemy away from the tents and towards himself, as if he was saying, look, I am still alive. Come and kill me, but do not attack my family members. But then Imam Hussain alayhi salam was martyred. And then they descended upon the tents. They attacked the tents. They attacked the tents. They looted the belongings. They were fighting over the bodies of the Shohada because they wanted to grab the heads for themselves and put them up on spikes. Imagine what the women and children were going through as they were fighting over the bodies of the Shohada, as they were looting their belongings. Dear brothers and sisters, you all heard that they set fire to the tents. They set fire to the tents. It makes me wonder, what is the point of setting fire to the tents? If they want to loot them, go ahead and loot them. Some have said it's because of their cruelty. Perhaps. Some have said they wanted to burn away the fabric of the tents so that in case there was any precious thing hidden inside the folds of the tent, they could find them. Perhaps. But perhaps there is another reason. Part of the tragedy of a night such as this is that those who were attacking the tents were almost entirely all from Kufa. These were Kufans, thousands of which had written letters to Imam Hussain, letters that he was probably still carrying with him, with their names and signatures on those letters. Perhaps this could be one of the reasons why they sought to burn everything, so that no trace of these letters can be found later in the future. So they set fire to the tents, and the ladies and children began to run helter-skelter in terror. Some of them ran in this direction, some of them ran in the other direction. But then we see a strange sight. Lady Zainab, she is stepping out of the tent and then turns back to enter a burning tent. What are you doing, Lady Zainab? Lady Zainab is going inside to rescue the Imam of our age. Imam Zainul Abidin, fallen ill, too ill to walk by himself. Lady Zainab, Sharikatul Hussain, going there to bring the Imam out to safety. Lady Zainab had many responsibilities to discharge tonight, many responsibilities to carry out. One of the responsibilities was for her to gather the terror-stricken ladies and children together and take count and see if all of them are there. It has been narrated from our fourth Imam. He said about tonight that on this night, the children of our family scattered in fear in the desert, just as the beads of a tasbih scatter when a tasbih breaks. Lady Zainab, her sister Kulthum, the other ladies, they have the responsibility of gathering the children. They step out into the desert to go and look for the children. They find them, someone hiding behind this rock, behind that bush, shaking in fear and terror. It is dark already. Somehow they come across two children who are embracing each other and lying motionless on the floor. Lady Zainab thinks to herself, they must be tired, they've fallen asleep, holding on to each other. She walks up to them gently so as not to startle them. But when she tries to pick them up, she says that on each of their soft little chests is the sign of a horse. These children are not going to wake up again ever. But what about the little girl? What about little Sakina? Where is she? She can't be found. Sakina is out in the desert. She is going from one body to another. There are bodies scattered everywhere. She is looking for the body of her father Hussein. Finally, she senses that there is a headless martyr which is more luminescent and more fragrant than the others. Perhaps this is my father. And a voice calls out from the body, Ilayya, Ilayya, ya bunayya. Come to me, my little girl. Come to me. Sakina rushes over to this body, embraces the body, puts her head on her father's chest and falls asleep. Oh Imam Hussain, I urge you, please don't be so kind to Sakina. She has to toughen up. She has to get ready to face difficulties. There will be those who will shout at her. There will be those who will tie a rope around her neck. She has to get used to men who do not hesitate to slap little children. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.